Hi, my name is Dawn Netzer, and I am doing this presentation that was collaborated with Ashley Carroll and John Graham, Rooted in Tech, Unplugged Pathways to Growth. So if you want to see this presentation, you can go to that URL that's listed there. So we are part of the Learning Through Technology team at the Department of Education, and our role is to work with MLTI schools and support them in free professional development around technology and technology resources and any of the type of learning that um, takes place in that realm. So my first question to you is, what do you think of when you think of tech in the classroom? So if someone maybe were to come to you today and say, you need to have some more tech in your classroom, if they came up to you and said, hey, what tech are you using in your classroom? Like, what would come to mind? What would be those things that stuck out to you as examples of technology in the classroom? Go ahead if you need to pause this video to think of some examples or brainstorm. That's absolutely fine. So what I'm showing on this screen is probably at least some of the ideas that you came up with are presented here, because what we see are the outward big major technologies that are in our classrooms and in education. They're kind of the hot topics, and they can be kind of intimidating. I'm not going to lie, and I'm a tech person. And so when someone says, oh, you need to have more tech in your room, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I don't even know how to 3D print or how to teach coding or something like that, um, it can really be an obstacle because it seems like it's an unreachable thing and there's so much work to get there. But this whole presentation is about there's more to it than that. In fact, there's a lot of building blocks that if we ignore, these outward signs or these major technologies are not something that are attainable for many people. And so we want to really build the idea around preparing teachers and students for the best experience using technologies in their room. So we want to look at underneath these branches. I use this example of a tree because you don't see that root system. You don't necessarily see what feeds that tree, which makes it able to have those big, strong branches. But without them, you couldn't, it's not sustainable. And so if we just bring AI or coding or 3D printing into our classrooms without some of these building blocks, it's just not a sustainable practice. And that's not what we're aiming for. Yes, those are fun, innovative techs, but they're not something that, if it's not integrated, it's not going to take us or our students very far at all. And so then it ends up being that those big, what seems like low hanging fruit, as far as it's right there and that's what people are talking about, not necessarily ease, actually becomes the distraction to learning meaningful technology. And so what we're looking to do is to build up some root systems, things like growth mindset, being able to work through failures, being able to persevere and think beyond the frustrations of the moment, learning how to fail. It's not innate in us necessarily to just fail and pick ourselves right back up, but how do we fail? What do we do in order to rise above that and make it actually a failing forward type of situation? Problem solving, breaking things down, learning how to identify a problem and get yourself to the point of actually having a solution, dealing with frustrations. And you'll notice that these are not tech specific. These are things that need to be applied to the situation of tech, help with the success of tech. But these are skills that we hope our students have across the board. And so you can see it as having two facets to it, something that's going to help in our classrooms deal with some SEL stuff, deal with some basic getting along or being part of a group collaborating, while at the same time supporting these deeper endeavors with technology. Other ones are like building perseverance. I often see kids willing to persevere in a technology setting because it's more motivating to get that 3D print or to get that game to work or to get this to happen or that to happen. But we want to build perseverance through the skills that we are teaching and the activities that we are using with our students. We want to be able to channel excitement into productivity, have kids enjoy the process of creating and actually get their creativity to come out and shine. And that's helpful in tech as well as other aspects as well. And then to get help with problems. What do you do if you don't know? Do you ask questions? Who can you go to? Asking for help is not, it's not a weakness of yours. It's a strength to be able to seek out what you need. And so, as you can tell, these underlying roots are something that strengthen a lot of systems, not just educational technology, but educational technology, as we're going to see in the next few slides, is a very important aspect for us to be able to prepare our students for the next stages in their life beyond school. So first thing I want to do, though, is I really want to talk about the difference here. We're not just talking about scaffolding. We are talking about it. That is something, you know, like starting very young, building your way up. But we're not talking about just unplugged technology at the lower grades until they're ready for hands-on devices technology. This is actually a all the time interaction between our students, ourselves, and technology. We need to all have that unplugged time for various reasons. And there's always time to unplug from the technology and learn the basics of these strategies, even into high school. So I'm going to be sharing some resources with you. And I have a whole collection that I've built up on a Padlet of different books that help support tech mindsets and just these idea of perseverance and whatnot. And that children's books are not just for children, in case that just needs to be said out there. And so having these conversations, starting these conversations, maybe through books, maybe through other means, can be happening at any grade level and should be. They should not be just put on their device because they know how to use it. We should be purposeful behind what we're trying to teach them in those experiences. And that includes anything outside of that device as well. So scaffolding does allow for a process and procedures and routines for things to be in place. So there's very much a need for that scaffolded approach to technology, but I work with pre-Kers who sometimes I'm unplugged and sometimes they actually do have a device. Obviously, it's different devices depending on situations. And so I will be going through the Padlet of resources that I've created, and you'll be able to see a lot of those books as well. Now, where is this headed as far as I've talked a lot about their career readiness and where they go beyond high school. So back in the 1980s, there was some research done between stakeholders in education and stakeholders in the workforce. And educational leaders said, what are you looking for in the students that we are really handing off to you in the future? And so they did this entire study here of what it actually takes for a student to gain the skills that's going to take them into the career. And what came out of that was the 21st century skills. And as you look through these, a lot of people are familiar with the top ones. Sometimes they're referred to as the 4Cs: critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. And we kind of tout those as being like important pillars inside of learning, and they absolutely are, but there's more to it than that. So they identified literacy skills, and we think of that as reading and writing, but that's not just it. We need to get information, media. There is a glut of media being poured into our lives and our students' lives, and how can we navigate that? Technology. There needs to be basic technology skills in order for them to go successfully into whatever their next path is, because technology is and will continue to be a part of everything. Okay. And then even those life skills pieces, being able to be flexible, have some leadership skills, take initiative, be productive, and their social skills. And so as you look at those, they're all embedded inside that content that is so important that we teach in schools. but we also can be teaching them even at the very earliest levels, and we should continue to teach them fluidly throughout our curriculums, whether it's in technology, whether it's in math or science or whatever it is. And so these 21st century skills are really the driving force of how are we going to provide them with good, solid skills for really jobs that may not even exist yet. Think about that. Because of the way that technology is shifting, because of the way society is shifting, for any number of reasons, there are going to be a need for skills that don't even yet have relevance or need for in our society. One that came up to me several years ago now is someone was talking about drones, and those were fairly new that people could have them. And they said, yeah, well, at some point we're going to have drone mechanics. Okay, so that's a whole other, with new technology and innovations comes the need for people with new skills as well. And so providing them with a list of skills isn't the need, but providing them with the mindsets and the ability to be flexible and work with the skills that they have and gain new skills as they go are going to be the relevant tools that we can give them. Inquiry and curiosity, those are two major themes inside of this work, because we want students to be thinkers. And unfortunately, the system and the mandates and the amount of things we have to get through in our curriculum and the timing and all of those pressures that are put on teachers turns into a system where we don't have the luxury to just let them be curious and think and inquire about things as much as they initially feel that need to. So I'm going to share a story. I was reading one of the tech books that you'll see in my Padlet called Beautiful Oops. And it's a book about making a mistake and then changing it into something different. So I took it into the pre-Kers and I read the book to them and we talked about it. And then we did scribble art where you just take a crayon and you scribble all over. And then we put our imagination glasses on and we looked at that and we looked for what was inside the art, what beautiful things were made by our mess. And so they came up with all kinds of ideas and it was really wonderful. You looked at it and they could just see this world and they were describing it to you and it was amazing. And I did the same thing with first graders, just 2 years older. It was the same day. And those students, we went through the whole process. And when they put on their imagination glasses, like I told them to, they said, well, it's not quite right. It's not perfect. It kind of looks like a football, but it's not a football. And so we had already gotten to the point where it had been squelched in them. And we don't want that to happen. We want to encourage the curiosity that really is innate in children and in humans to continue. And so there's a couple of resources on this page. There is a link to an article about it. We do have an MLTI YouTube video that's talking about this from a past ambassador. And then I put together some thinking routines. You can actually practice thinking in your classroom through these routines, and they can take like 2 to 5 minutes. So we're going to engage in one real quick. So when you look at this picture that I just got through Canva, my first question is, what do you see? So as you look at it, just let your imagination, let your curiosity and your inquiry just kind of guide you to list or think about what you're seeing in all aspects, all corners of this picture. If you need to pause and do that, that's fine. The second question is, what do you think? Like, what assumptions are you making, or what occurs to you, or what makes you kind of go off in other tangents and go down different rabbit holes based on these things that you're seeing? Maybe there's emotions that are evoked in you for certain aspects based on your experiences or the colors or the framing of this picture. And then again, the last question is, what do you wonder? Like, what questions does this bring up? For me, this brings up a lot of questions. And in fact, when I found this one, I knew it was the right picture because the first thing I said is, why can't they just experience what's going on around them? Why do we have to have a phone and a camera up in front of him, really blocking reality? Now, truth be told, I'm guilty of this a lot of times because I want to capture that picture. But what do you wonder about this? And so we just engaged in a couple of minutes of just priming the pump, just getting ourselves thinking and engaged in a context. And it could be relevant to the context that you are teaching. It could be completely random. It could be any number of things, and just presenting the opportunity to think and wonder, creating a safe space for, it's okay to feel what you feel. It's okay to see what you see, to wonder what you wonder. And maybe we'll have the answers and maybe we won't. And that's okay too. And so just building that safe place for curiosity and that safe place for asking those questions. And will it take us somewhere? Does it, how can that transform the learning to take us to a different place, an engaging place that is helpful for our students? And so that's just one of the ways in which we can start engaging our students with these mindsets in mind. So two major aspects here that directly connect to the technology world are design thinking and computational thinking. So there is a video here if you want to watch it when you get a chance. But design thinking, and you'll see this is a cycle, but anytime there's a problem, anytime that you need to design a solution or design an object or design anything, if you need to work through something, this process of first understanding, and there's two aspects to it. You want to be able to empathize. So too many problems in our world are seemingly being solved by something gimmicky, or, like it only solves an aspect of the problem, or it doesn't really address the problem. Pretty much it's just someone's way of, they can make money, right? But if we're empathizing with who is actually having the problem, what is the actual problem that we are working on? So that's the define stage of this. Maybe you need to break away some of the extra stuff. Like those aren't actually the problems. Maybe they're the symptom of a problem, or maybe those things are doing okay. But if we narrow down and we find out who's struggling and why, what the actual problem is, then we can start having ideas. Now, this explore stage, I read a book by Kevin Brookhauser, and he talks about having a bad idea factory, allowing kids, adults, whoever, the license to share ideas with the intent that they're going to be bad anyway. Go ahead and share them. It takes the vulnerability out of sharing your ideas. I really, really love that idea. And then those crazy off the wall ideas that your brain's like, oh, that is just like the most foolish thing ever, oftentimes turn into some of the best ideas, or at least spark someone to start thinking about those ideas in a different light and be able to look at things a little bit differently. And then from those ideas, be like, well, let's try something. That's called prototyping. And we do that in technology as well. I had a student who we did prototyping with 3D printing. He wanted to be able to, I have an idea, I'm going to print it, I'm going to have it in an hour. And that's just not how that process works. So we really had to work on the idea of, we're going to try, we're also going to fail, but we're also going to learn from that failure and be able to try again and be able to get better every time until we have something that works for us. And so that works even in non-physical areas. Once you have ideas, you're going to test little things, see what works, see what didn't, and kind of explore and do experiment around your ideas. And then you really get to that point of, okay, I'm ready to test this and implement this. But again, it's a cycle. So going back and empathizing and defining, was that the actual problem? Did that take care of anything? Like not just leaving it there, but iterating on that idea of what you're trying to accomplish. The other one that we really talk a lot about in the tech world is computational thinking. how computers work. So the idea of computational thinking is breaking it down as simple as you can so even a computer can understand it, because a computer does not have our thinking brains that can reason and do all of those things, but it's very, very good at following directions. It's very, very good at doing things systematically. And so we want to be able to abstract or focus on the important things, ignoring the other things. A common thing when I was teaching math, because I'm a math teacher, is look at the word problem. What's information that's not important? What's information that isn't important? So being able to discern between pieces of the puzzle, pieces of the thing, the problem you're working on, and knowing where, the importance of different parts of it, decomposing, seeing those smaller pieces inside the whole, knowing what is a big task versus a smaller task, and being able to break those bigger ones down, looking for patterns. What's the same, what's different, how can I relate these in any way? And our brain automatically does that type of work, but engaging in it purposefully. And then this is an interesting one to me. So I mentioned that I'm a math teacher by trade. And so algorithms in the math world all too often mean the way to do it. And I actually am not a standard algorithm math teacher. I want math thinking, not just math doing. And so an algorithm is not an initial place where you start. An algorithm is where you get to when you have understood and you can now give some direction towards how you did it, and don't, not the way to do it, but a way to do it. And so being able to develop that step-by-step way of working through it is where we've given that to computers, because they cannot think through how to solve it themselves. They need to have that step-by-step direction. So when you put into your calculator a math problem, it's been taught, do this, then this, then this, then this. And as thinkers, we should be given information and context and say, how can we get to this arrival? And then, so the algorithms actually come at the end of this scenario rather than the beginning. But this whole process of thinking, any one of these pieces here are important pieces that can be taught to children of any ages, adults of any ages, through these unplugged methods. And you probably can see some of these pieces and go, oh, I do teach those pieces in a different context. But we really want to make it more fluid so that it extends over all these different concepts. And so now we're going to take a quick look at a resource bank that I have created here. I'm going to get out and get into this one. So this is called a Padlet. A Padlet is a place where you can really attach any kind of file or document. So it's a really good place to kind of put everything all together. So some of these are pictures, some of them are links, some of them are other Padlets or articles or whatever. And so if I go over here, I'll see I put the 21st century skills, and where I got this graphic, there's lots of different places that deal with this. There's a whole section on unplugged coding. And we think about coding as being, you're going to have to need a computer, right? You're going to have to need, because coding is deep programming that is a language we don't understand. And that's just not true. There are lots of activities that get kids ready and know how the process works, the kind of the behind the scenes, that can eventually lead to a very highly developed coder or programmer. And that's one of these pieces. These are things that are small steps to get us where we want our learners to eventually be. So there's a whole section on computational thinking again, access to some teachers pay teachers. Just, you can type in there some unplugged type things. This is a physical game. I actually own the game. You don't have to. You could make it yourself, where you actually set up a scenario and kids code each other by telling them go left, go right, go up, go down, and get that sequencing of how that's supposed to work. There's different tools for having a device but not having it on a screen. So there are some, I've taken the bee bots, which is a very simple, it looks like a bee, just like in the picture. You can make it go forward or backwards, turn right, turn left. Very simplistic, but it gets at that mindset. So if there are opportunities for that, there's some breakout rooms like escape rooms. Here's some ideas about texts, some books like I was talking about. So if I go ahead and click on that, I've collected from many, many, many different resources and different people in order to get this. But these are some really good books. Here's the beautiful Oops that I was talking about. This is another great series, The Magnificent. So this one's The Most Magnificent Thing. She designed something, she gets frustrated. So you can talk about all those pieces as you're reading it. This one you can also buy a game for that has all these random pieces and kids just draw them out, pick a card, and it will say something like build the best birdhouse ever. And they have to use what they have to creatively come up with something and then describe to you what they've created to solve that problem. So that game's right there. This is a one I really love. It's because it's very open-ended about what do you do with your ideas. So as you look through these resources, one thing I want you to realize is that we are not asking someone to jump in a place they're not comfortable. It's jump in somewhere that seems manageable with the idea of, and then keep going, keep taking those small bites so that there is this approach to, I'm not even going to just say tech anymore, but career readiness that we're supporting in all our classrooms at any ages that's really going to help prepare them for their future. And that's what we're really concerned about here, is preparing our students for their future. So let me get back here. There we go. So there's a whole bunch of resources. That's what I was indicating before, that you could click on that and you get to that Padlet. So whether you pause right now and look at some of those, or whether you want to take time afterwards, just know you can reach out with resources with questions, sorry, and or resources. That would be great, because we want to make sure that we're supporting this effort and that people are on board for creating the best, most successful environment for our students that's going to create employable graduates, not just a graduate that has all A's and doesn't know what to do with them type of scenario. And that really, it can happen, but we want this whole student view of all of the aspects that make them a candidate in workforces when they have graduated. If you would take time to please fill out the feedback, this helps us know what is professional development that people are really liking, how we could shift and change things, because we want to be able to tailor this free professional development to your needs. If you need contact hours, you can click on this link or type in this URL or go to this QR code, and you can get contact hours for watching this video, which we all know is a good thing to do to collect our contact hours. And then we do have lots of professional development offerings. So if you click on that, I'm going to go ahead and show you. There is a menu of all kinds of different options. Now, these are just kind of our most popular options that we have offered this year. It is not an exhaustive list of what we can offer, but it gets you thinking about what's out there. We have lots of other professional developments on our MLTI YouTube page. So if you want to go to that, if you go up to this next page right here, you can click on it. And again, I'm going to put this up here, pause your screen or however you need to do it to go ahead and get that information so that we can get our feedback and then click through again to get your contact hours. So again, make sure that you are pondering these ideas, looking at the resources, and reaching. Thank you.